I'm on the right side.
Welcome back. Now, we may not be in Congress, to make those super well-timed trades, but there may still be a way to profit or at least protect wealth with crypto as another part of your overall plan. Grant Cook is back with us. He holds regular Twitter spaces on Litecoin. He hosts the first Litecoin podcast. He's passionate about what crypto can offer, self-custody, privacy, sovereignty, and decentralization. So welcome back in, Grant Cook. Thank you for being back with us again.
Hey, Kristi, how you doing?
I'm doing great. So, what do you think about that Congress play? Like, they were so lucky, right?
Oh yeah, I mean I mean it's like I've gotten to the point I'm over it in a way because you expect the worst and you're never
Yeah.
disappointed, I guess.
And I mean, it's
No, man, you guys
disappointing.
covered so much, you and Kirk. Oh my gosh,
Yeah. I mean,
I
it's
wanted to
disappointing
chime
that
in
it
so
happens on
badly.
both sides of the aisle. I mean, it's definitely Republicans and Democrats. I wish they could. And it's like, what hope is there of passing any kind of legislation to essentially keep them from cheating? Because it's like, they're not going to be the ones to do that. So it's a mess. But all we can do is control what we're doing. And so, first of all, you're really into this whole Litecoin to the point of you're really passionate about educating others. So, how did you get into Litecoin in particular?
um, well, so at first I bought Bitcoin, like most people who buy crypto. Bitcoin's kind of their first put their toe in the water type of thing. And essentially, Litecoin, I can go, I'll kind of give you the history of it, but Litecoin is essentially nearly identical to Bitcoin and in all but like four different ways. So there's just, it's a little faster, it's a lot less expensive, and it uses basically different equipment to do the mining. Um, and so I guess I believe that like that's one of the shortcomings of Bitcoin. Right now, you're seeing actually there's some new fancy thing people are doing on Bitcoin, but it's costing like $5. You want to make a transaction on Bitcoin, it costs $5. And so Litecoin has all the qualities that Bitcoin has, but it's only costs a tenth of a penny to use Litecoin. And so to me, I want to have a money that I can actually use. Now there's some solutions people are coming up with Bitcoin. I'm not saying that's the end for Bitcoin or something like that. There are other options that called like the Lightning Network and other types of second layers they call them that would allow your transaction to be less expensive. And I also believe in a free market that people should be allowed to choose what they want. I think there's some reasons you would want to own Bitcoin, just like there's reasons you'd want to own Litecoin. So I think that's been my biggest driver. And even though my name is Litecoin Underground, when we talk and when I do some of my podcasts and stuff, it's definitely more oriented around free markets and kind of limiting the amount of coercion around what you do with your money or what you do with your time. I mean, that's ultimately what freedom is the ability to not have to ask for permission. I have a guy who comes in all the time. He says things like, if you're asking permission, you're seeking denial. So that's kind of what this is about. I'm a free, sovereign individual, and I shouldn't have to ask to do what I want to do. How about that? So, do you want so you kind of I'm new to the TV thing, like this whole atmosphere. I just like to just BS a
We're
lot.
just hanging out,
And
Grant. It's fine.
so, and like on Twitter,
It's
I get a
me,
little heady.
you, and like
Oh,
our third person is just how many people like find you interesting.
oh,
It's
all right, all right.
like,
Well, I think last week specifically, I'm not sure if this was your exact wording, but something along the lines of "talk nerdy" to me might have been what you wanted. I wasn't sure.
yes, stop
So,
there,
but I don't know if it would be helpful because I know it's pretty new to you. And I think what can happen with cryptocurrencies, again, there's so many of them that it can be this like tidal wave. People start talking to you about block sizes and block times and algorithms. And you're just like, dude, I don't know. And you just your brain just shuts down, right?
Yeah,
So what I'm hoping to do, I'm going to do something that's hard to do. 10 minutes, I'm going to try to explain the
awesome.
basics of how these things work and why they're important. And you guys use the word centralization a lot in the first half of this. The internet is centralizing everything. The internet's basically invalidating the need for, I mean, we've seen newspapers get eliminated, the music industry's changed, movie industry's changed, television's changed. The news is in the process of doing this. And the only reason cable news still exists is because It's this legacy thing. You can run a television show on YouTube with one person and get just as much value as you did out of a whole team and a building, and how much investment
Yeah.
required in the past. So it's a churning, it's a shifting period that we're just having to let go of the past, and it's very difficult. And we will lose a lot of kind of intellectual jobs, and people are going to have to just find value in other things. And I'm optimistic that it'll be good in the long term, but it's going to be a tough transition. So I'm going to give you a quick Bitcoin,
Awesome.
Litecoin history. And I've
Okay.
talked to you about a number in the past, but I'm going to focus on those two because they're like the oldest running. They're the basics. They're everywhere you go. Every exchange has Bitcoin and Litecoin. PayPal, Venmo, every ATM, Robinhood, everywhere you want to go that has crypto involved, those two are going to be there because they've been around so long. All right. So as you may know the name Satoshi Nakamoto, right? You've probably heard it. He's this, we don't know, entity that created
Wait, is that
the
Pikachu?
Bitcoin.
Pikachu? Is that
Yeah,
Pokemon?
Satoshi,
Okay.
just Satoshi. That's what we call it. He wrote this. I got here the Bitcoin white paper. It's like 8 or 9 pages long in 2008. Banks were collapsing, right? Obama was about to take office. And in the midst of all that, he kind of dropped this on the tech community and said, I think I've figured out the problem of digital money. There had been some attempts at it, and he was attempting to make a stateless money that you could use around the world. And so they tinkered with it, and a few months later they kind of released it onto the world. It was still very new then, very few people were involved. And um, what am I going to? Oh yeah, Litecoin. Just I wanted to tell you what that came. That came a few years later. Charlie Leigh, who was a enthusiast at Bitcoin, saw some of the things that I just mentioned might be hiccups in the future as far as throughput and capacity, and essentially copied Bitcoin. All right, so it took 98% of what makes Bitcoin run and changed a few key things, like I said, about speed and capacity. And other than that, that's it, right? So it's those two, they operate in the same type of system. You've heard about mining, proof of work, that type of thing. That's what secures the network. So what's so important about these things is that they are decentralized. There is no leader, there's no CEO, there's no board of directors, there's no physical location you can go to shut them down. So it's out of the reach of governments, it's out of the reach of corporations. And because it's centralized or decentralized, it's a permissionless network. So you can use it, anybody can use it and send money around the world 24 hours a day without having to ask permission. I don't have to go to my bank and ask if I can use my money and hope that they have it there, which is what we're seeing right now. Banks are collapsing because they don't really have any money. And all it takes is a couple triggering events, and the money you've been saving, now you got to go fight to get it, right? So
Mhm.
it's a permissionless system. Anybody can use it. You don't have to be a computer tech to use it. You just have to have a phone, basically. It's a trustless system, which when I first heard this word, I thought that's a negative word to use. Trustless. Don't you? Isn't trust a good thing? Right? Every commercial you see, it's a state bank and trust or trust us. Well, the reason you have to trust them is because you're giving them your money and you're hoping that they bring it back in return. I like what Kirk says about gold and silver because I think those are great assets, but you don't really get the true power of gold and silver unless you take them into possession yourself. Otherwise, you're trusting somebody else that if the shit hits the fan,
Yeah.
they're going to give you your money back. And frankly, any corporation is licensed by a government. They're required to report who you are, what you're doing. And again, if for whatever reason governments decide they don't want people to possess gold, which we've seen in the past, they can go to those companies that are holding your gold and tell them, can't have it. It's gone. So you have to take these things in your own possession in order to really use them. So trustless is that I don't have to trust you in order to use this system. You can't defraud Bitcoin. You can't defraud Litecoin. You can't send me fake coins. Uh, if you are in Iran and I'm the United States and we don't trust each other, we're enemies. That doesn't matter. Neither of us can defraud the system. So, I go buy a car
Honestly,
I sell my
you
car
know,
on Facebook.
yeah, I'm stopping you there only because the mainstream would tell you that's not true. They'd be like, well, look what happened with FTX and look what happened with
Right.
these other crypto situations. Like it's ripe with fraud is what they would say. And you're saying you can't defraud the system. So how do you respond to that?
Okay, so those are trusted third parties. That's somebody that took possession of other people's cryptocurrency and said, "I'll hold on to it for you. If you ever want
Yeah.
it, you can have it." And then they went out, just like Bernie Madoff did the same thing, right? You know, the dollar has plenty of fraud. The stock market has ample fraud. If you trust people to hold it, if I could hold my own stock certificate, I wouldn't need Bernie Madoff. You know what I mean?
Right.
But now they've made it. I don't even know that they issue physical stock. I don't think they do anymore. They used to 20 or 30 years ago. So yeah, FTX, the guy was a scammer. He was a fraud, and that's not uncommon. That's why you should take possession of your assets. I hold my Litecoin. I keep it either on my phone or I've got a hardware device, which is again, I can explain that maybe another time
Yeah.
because that takes a little explaining. But yeah, and so this trustless system means that I don't have to know you, speak the same language. I don't have to reveal any information about myself, but I know I'm not going to be defrauded. So like, if you sell a car on Facebook or something and someone gives you cash, there's an element of trust that's not counterfeit, or that gold is not counterfeit, right? So somebody can bounce a check. That happens all the time. Okay, so censorship resistant, kind of the same thing. There's no central body. There's no way anybody can kick down the door of Litecoin and say, reveal all your information about this user. It just doesn't exist. My name is not associated with the coins that I hold. All right. Immutable, basically, it's never changing. I'm using my little chart here.
Yeah. Follow along. I love
It's
it.
just very so it's very difficult to change these two assets because, and that has to do with the mining. Essentially, the miners get a vote is the best way to put it. Every hash, it's called, every unit of energy they're putting into this, I guess would be the best way to put it, is what gives them, I guess, say in the protocol. And so there have been changes, but it's extremely difficult to do, and you have to have a broad consensus to make those changes. And the good thing is, if you don't like the changes, you can opt to not adopt those changes. You can kind of run an older version of the same software, and you aren't forced. Again, this is all about no coercion. You're not forced to use it in the way that somebody else wants to use it, right? Or you can opt for a separate coin. You might not like Litecoin's rules, so you might want to go to Bitcoin or Dogecoin. That's the point, is that this is a free market money, and it's completely stateless, and it's a little bit difficult to wrap your head around sometimes of the possibilities with that. So if you wanted to hire a graphic designer who lives in Central Africa, what better way to send them money than in a system that can work 24 hours a day and is spendable all over the world and costs a tenth of a penny to transmit and requires no permissions, requires no intermediaries. It's a very revolutionary technology.
Yeah.
So where you're seeing it
Great.
be used most. Oh,
Oh,
yep,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry. I was just gonna say you have about 2 minutes to wrap up secure and scarce.
That's good. I got it. It's secure. That's it. And there's
Okay.
84 million Litecoin and 21 million Bitcoin. Did I hit 10 minutes? I did pretty good there. But I
You're
want to
getting
talk
there.
I want to give you a real quick kind of
Yeah.
nerd thing. All right. This is my,
Yes.
so there's this thing, not your keys, not your coins. I told you I'm going to give you a vocabulary word every year,
Yeah.
every week. Not your keys, not your coins. Your keys is like your private password that allows
Okay.
you access your coins. So when I say I have coins on my phone, I don't really have them on my phone. What I have is my keys. I have my private access to use my keys or my coins. My coins are on this decentralized ledger that is being maintained by thousands and thousands of miners and nodes. So there's no way to confiscate your money because it doesn't physically exist in your space.
Mhm.
You only have the password to access it. Is that nerdy? That
It's
makes
nerdy.
sense.
And it kind of makes sense. I feel like we're all gonna get to understand this more as the more that we get to have you on. And so
Yeah,
that
it's kind of
keeps
like
it.
I've heard like a PO box is a good
Oh,
analogy.
yeah.
So you can access it anytime you want, but obviously in the beginning of a PO box, you generally give away some information and all that. But so I guess looking at it as a digital PO box that if I want to use it or look at the contents, I have access to it and nobody else does.
Mhm.
Makes sense?
Awesome. Yeah. And then did you hit the scarce point?
Oh, there's 84 million Litecoin that will ever exist. There's currently about 74 million, and there'll only be 21 million Bitcoin. I think we're at
So it's not like
19
they can
million
like print
ish.
like they do with
Now
paper money.
that could happen because
Oh,
it is mostly immutable, but you would have to have an incredible. I can't even imagine what would cause that. But there's a consensus that says that's not ever going to happen. The miners would all have to agree to it. The users would all have to agree to it, and I really don't see that happening um, in any realistic way. And if it did, you could opt to use the other chain.
awesome. Awesome. Well, you did great. I think that you hit that. That's a great like Litecoin 101 explanation. And we're gonna have Grant Cook back on to talk nerdy to us again.
Yeah,
Not this next week, but the week after. We get him every other week to talk nerdy to us. So thank you so much for coming on.
yeah,
And you can always follow Grant at LTC Underground.
yeah. Wednesday nights, 9 Eastern. Come in and ask
Yes,
questions. Someday Christie's coming in.
I
This isn't
know.
just a running gag. We'll announce it if that does happen, though. So,
Yes, we
all
definitely
right.
I definitely need to put it on a calendar. So yeah, again, you can always join on the Twitter Spaces, ask all your questions, get even more nerdy talk. So
Yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
right. Thank you so much, Grant.